at some point it just didn't make sense anymore. If this overperforms so much better, if user quality is higher, if engagement is higher, it doesn't make sense to run traditional channels anymore. We give rewards, users are more engaged with the game, they stick around for longer, which in return drives the ROAS for partners. It's done on a user level and it's done on a game level. And that's what shifted things quite a lot, because now we can actually maximize all the potential that's in this industry.
Hey everyone, welcome to Apptica Talks podcast, where we discuss hot topics in mobile industry with great experts. And today I share our studio with Günay Aliyeva, founder of Gamelight, the largest rewarded marketing platform. So hey Günay, happy to see you again. How are you?
Hi Xenia, doing well. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Cool. So we've already explored a bit your AI algorithms and how they can enhance the user acquisition strategy with James in one of our previous episodes. But now I would like to discuss this fascinating topic from a different angle and mainly concentrate on the rewarded UA acquisition strategies. And I guess it's a buzzword. There are many reports, there are many articles concerning offer walls, rewarded ads, and I saw one report from Unity stating that, just let me check the numbers, that rewarded video ad engagement in apps rose by 3.2% year over year globally in 2023, and users acquired through offer walls have a 45.8% high retention rate on day one, 86% high retention on day 7, and 71 on day 30. So the numbers are quite positive. The industry is widely discussing this direction. That's why I would like to ask and to discuss this topic with you guys. Of course, rewarded ads have been around for years, but you have elevated it to a primary growth driver. So why have you decided to move this way, and what was the inspiration, I would say, behind it?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, it's been around for quite long, and I truly believe there's huge potential as marketing now too, because it's obviously makes more sense that not just media partners and advertisers benefit from advertising. In case of rewarded marketing, also end users benefit from it, because those are the ones that are actually playing the game. But until now, it has been quite unoptimized, I would say. So, for example, if we are talking about targeting, it's some manual targeting, agenda OS. If you are talking about reward structure, it's some, again, manual defining minutes and the rewards that user would get, or defining events manually and the rewards user are getting. This is very unoptimized, even though there's huge potential, which means the companies could only reach a certain limit. They can grow to a certain degree because advertisers can't get as much benefit as they could actually be. And what we did is that we optimized it and we automated it, and we built an algorithm that defines all of this. So there's no more humans sitting in front of the laptop defining, let me do this targeting, let me take some averages and add it to for all users, or doing things like manually defining reward structure. This is all done by the algorithm dynamically. It's done on a user level and it's done on a game level. And that's what shifted things quite a lot, because now we can actually maximize all the potential that's in this industry.
But how exactly does your model work? So there is no manual effort involved, but how can you actually guarantee that this targeting is done in the correct manner and this ad will be seen by a right user?
Yeah, so when the users that we show ads to are our own users from our platform, so they downloaded our app, and we also have access to the app usage data. We can see which games they're playing, how long, which apps they are using. We also have access to demographics data, which is their age and gender, their device data, manufacturer, and so on. So that's a lot of data points, which is not possible to analyze as a human, because you have to then spend a lot of time. You will not be precise, and you will just get average numbers, so to say, from the groups that you defined. And what our algorithm does is it finds patterns between usage behavior based on all of these data points that I mentioned, and finds what would be the best for each game. So, for example, if a certain user is maybe they are male, 18 years old, and they do love match three games. That's some user that would be excluded from usual targeting, right? You would, for match three games, you would probably
Mhm.
target female 30 plus, and you would
Yes.
exclude the male 18 user. But now we look at the app usage data, we see how they behave in similar games, and we know that this could be a good game, good user for the certain game that we generally would be targeting this kind of user.
Yeah, but it's quite challenging now, with all these personal data usage metrics. So it's getting harder and harder to get all this information. How do you overcome this challenge, and what are other challenges that you have faced throughout your path?
Yeah. We get consent from our users for obviously using this data and also showing them ads. And usually we are fine to get it because users also would get rewards. So we don't just monetize this data in our benefit, but we monetize this data for them because they're the ones eventually getting the rewards as well. And regarding the challenges, I would say initially the main challenge was that UI managers were not ready to give away control because they're used to
Mhm.
saying, I want this specific targeting, like female 30 plus, OS 12 plus, or I want specifically this kind of user or this kind of reward structure. I want those events, and you should give this many rewards. And it was difficult to explain that this is kind of a past of the rewarded. This is not how we do it, and we have an algorithm that defines it much better than you would do based on just averages of previous experience. But then it got easier because once the partners would switch to our AI algorithm, they would see the quality, and then the word spread out, and they would tell other companies, and then would get basically a lot of inbounds because the companies now see that it's a way better way to do rewarded UA than the previous way that we've been doing.
Yeah, I checked your blog section and all the case studies you have, and in fact, you have a quite an extensive database and client base, I would say. So, can you share maybe some successful cases from your clientele if it's not under NDA? So, what you have done and what results you have received?
Sure. Our latest case study was Quantum. We've been working with them since now 2 years, so quite some time, since basically the beginning of Gamelight. And we promoted many games with them. And for example, the case study is about a game where we over delivered the ROAS goals day 7 and day 30, and we doubled both of them. So for example, day 30 was over delivered by 91%, so almost doubling day 30 goal too. And we did it purely thanks to the AI algorithm. So there was no manual targeting, no manual reward structure. We simply created the campaign with the tracking link. We fetched the creators from the store, so it's very easy. And then the campaign optimized itself to reach the goals. There are way more case studies, as you mentioned. This is like one of them. We have case studies with IAP monetized games, with ad monetized games, casual, social casino, strategy, midcore. There are a lot of them. So if anyone's interested, it's direct on the website.
Yeah. So there are many actual verticals and subgenres within gaming. Uh, have you noticed maybe any differences? I mean, are there any limitations that rewarded ad is more applicable, let's say, for RPG game, but it doesn't work for match three or vice versa? So
Yeah.
how is it working here?
It works differently in our case because algorithm defines dynamically per user and per game. So, for example, if for certain game with a certain user, it would be better to give playtime rewards instead of event rewards, or to the different value how much rewards we give for each. Then the algorithm would define itself. So it right now works for every type of game. It's simply different result that each game is getting. For example, the point with IAP monetized games, let's say casual titles that are, let's say, match three, let's say, for those or for strategy titles, the beginning is usually a bit less interesting, so to say. For example, if it's match three, it might be a bit too easy to go through those tutorials, especially if you already played so many match three games. Or if it's a strategy game, beginning is usually a bit more boring or too exhausting to learn because you have to learn the whole concept, the whole world of this game before it gets engaging. So the rewarded UA pushed users through those difficult parts, so to say, where
Mm-hmm.
they would potentially drop in other channels, and we push them through to pass to the stage where they actually get hooked and interested. Because once you played for some 5, 10 levels and so on, the games actually get very interesting. You just need to give it a chance. In case of ad monetized games, it works a bit differently. Here, it starts engaging from the beginning usually. So the goal is to push users to play as much as possible, engage as much as possible with the game, and to pass more levels within a short time so that the ad monetized games can be profitable in a shorter time. That's why it works differently for each game type, but it works for every game type.
So there are no titles, there are no verticals that should be solely focusing on traditional UA. So rewarded ad strategy can be adjusted to any subgenres
Yes,
without
what I would
exceptions.
say is very important is that to have a lot of content in the game because with rewarded UA users you would usually engage more with the game. So could be that they pass through stage faster because they are also getting rewards somewhere. So they would finish more levels than they would finish with traditional channels. So there should be a lot of content for users to continuously play instead of reaching the end of it after like 20 days or something.
So do I get it right that there is the limit of game development? So it should be the game should be well established in the market with a lot of levels, stages, live ops events. If it's just a simple match-3 game without any side events, I would say there is no sense in launching rewarded ads.
I wouldn't say with side events, but if it's a match three game that just launched and there are, let's say, 30 levels to play, I don't think it makes sense because there's still no monetization structure, right? Within 30 levels, you can't get 100% ROAS return from the users. So eventually, whatever budget you spend, you will probably lose it. It can be also with traditional channels. It's more that as long as there are a lot of levels to play and you have a monetization structure in place, there it can be ad monetization or in-app purchases. As long as this is in place and there is enough content for users, it can be also within the same funnel without side events. It would work in this case.
So yeah, it's quite difficult nowadays, I guess, to get quality users, and a lot of UA managers that are struggling with that. And bearing that in mind, have you encountered any clients, any titles that actually put the biggest share of their marketing budget on the rewarded ads rather than on the traditional channels? Is there any shift?
Absolutely. So when we started, it was mainly we would get some share of the UA budget, right? That's what they were used to. We would even hear things like, "Yeah, we have very large budgets, but for
Yeah,
rewarded
for
channels,
testing.
yeah, like for testing we can do, or for rewarded it's only like 5% of our total budget." So they wouldn't be able to allocate more just because of the company policy. Now it's changed a lot. So we heard a lot when, for example, we launched a partner, we scaled them, and they kept on allocating more and more budgets. And eventually they would tell us that, for example, some mid-sized companies or smaller companies, that now 70 to 80% of the complete UA budget is on Gamelight. Because at some point it just didn't make sense anymore. If this overperforms so much better, if user quality is higher, if engagement is higher, it doesn't make sense to run traditional channels anymore just because that is how it should be. Or, for example, another case which we also had quite often, also from very, very big companies, where they would decide to discontinue the game because it doesn't work anymore. Maybe market is too saturated, or the game just didn't work. And they would tell us that Gamelight is the only channel they will keep because that's the only channel that works where users are actually very engaged and the retention is good and the ROAS is, they're getting the ROAS. So they would discontinue every other channel. They would stop promoting anywhere else except Gamelight. And this is happening more and more. And what I see also is that a lot of companies start fully shifting to rewarded. They would still run little percent, for example, on traditional channels, rewarded video networks, or social channels. But now they would focus a huge budgets on purely rewarded channels because it simply works better. They see much better quality from those.
And by quality, you mean both retention rates and also ROAS and profit per user, right? So all the metrics are much, much better in comparison with the traditional channels.
Exactly. So it starts usually from retention because retention and engagement because we give rewards, users are more engaged with the game, they stick around for longer, which in return drives the ROAS for partners. So ROAS is usually primary goal for most partners because they need to be profitable, which is driven by the retention and engagement.
Well, if this strategy is quite positive, bringing good positive results, I believe you will face, or maybe you are now facing some competitors who are trying actually to do the same and to implement the same strategy and offer the same product. So, how are you planning to stay ahead of this tough competition?
Yeah, I think so. There are a lot of companies that it's not simply replicate similar products, but we have seen a lot of actual copies when they, for example, copied the complete app, the color palette, the complete UI, buttons, placements, features,
Copycats.
like complete copycats. And it's kind of funny because like okay they can try it but like they can't see actually the backend, right? Because our success is not driven simply by how our apps look like but also by our AI algorithm. So they try to replicate this part instead of the building something of their own, which I think is a miss from by most companies because they should actually try to build something that would work, not just replicate how it looks like. That's not how you get success. um, we also have seen cases when they would not simply copy the product, but they would actually take our product and present as their own. For example, in the pitch decks, video explanations, they would have our app screenshots. Like, okay, interesting. Or recently, we've seen on in a conference. A boost by a company. They had some banners, rewarded UA, and so on by quite a big company. There were our app screenshots. So not just simply similar, but our actual app with the screenshots were on the banners. We talked about it, we laughed, but it's kind of a wrong path to take, I think, because if you just copy someone, you will never get bigger, right? You will at best be the second best. And that's the best case in this case. I think to stay ahead, you should try to do something of your own, to build new features, to come up with something new, try to innovate, build something that's not in the market, or improve that's something that's already in the market but make it better. But by simply copying, it's probably not going to work. You will simply get some little share of the market. Could be good enough for it could be enough for some companies, but I think most companies that have ambitions or have investment and want to grow, in this case, this is the wrong path to take.
And so yes, you can copy the image and brand, but you can't copy the algorithm. So that's the wrong way, I guess, to take. But what new features, new products are you planning to release? If it's not a secret, how are you planning to develop and enhance the product?
Yeah, our latest product feature that we developed is ROAS bidding model. So now we are also optimizing long term towards ROAS. So we've been optimizing towards ROAS anyways, but now partners could be bidding specifically for ROAS, not simply CPI or CPE. And this is one of the latest features, and we are building more both within the current product to add extra features for advertisers, to make it better, to make the platform better, but also building parallel products within ad tech industry to expand horizontally too. I can't share too much more, but as soon as those are out, I would love to share.
But are you planning to expand your inventory of the clients? I mean, so you're focusing now on the games, from what I see, but maybe you will attract some applications that are keen on trying
Yeah.
the rewarded ads to get more users for their apps.
Yeah, absolutely good that you mentioned. We actually did improve our algorithm specifically to fit non-gaming apps too. So now, until now, it has been gaming apps for in-app purchase and ad monetize, and now we also have for non-gaming. It's then so to say different version of the algorithm that works specifically for non-gaming apps, and we are right now expanding on this direction too.
But overall, it's quite clear about the product development. But if we see at this point in a broader sense, what development to expect from the rewarded UA ads, what improvements, what new features, new updates to expect in the upcoming future?
There are quite a few that we are working on right now, but I can't share because it's not
You are a
out.
trendsetter then in this
I,
field.
I can't share it too early, but as soon as it's out, I will. There are a couple of things that we are working on specifically for rewarded too to improve this direction too.
Okay, so then we will keep eye on the news coming from Gamelight to see what is happening in this market of the rewarded UA. Okay, so I'm not an expert in this field and I don't run any apps, but for example, if I decided to develop one app and I decided to run the rewarded ads, what advice, what recommendation would you give me? So, where to start with?
Yeah, absolutely. The first to explain that rewarded ads are usually two types. So depending on the channel you pick, it might be playtime rewards, where users get rewards for playing games for certain minutes, like 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and so on. And then there are certain type of rewarded channels which do it for events. So it's for certain milestones within the game, like passing level 5 or Kingdom 10 or Village 25 and so on. So it's two types of different rewards, and based on which one you choose, there should be different preparation ways, so to say. For example, you need to have quite a few events within the game. If you are giving rewards, if you have only two events, it will probably not work, because after getting rewards for two, users will probably drop. So the longer you do, better it is, because the quality will get better. In case of Gamelight, we do both of them, so both playtime and event rewards, and it's then defined by the algorithm which one user will get and how much they will get. But the main preparation, I would say, is to have enough content, to have enough events for users so that there is to play, and they set up a proper monetization model, be it ad monetized ads or in-app purchases. If those are in
Mm,
place, it is quite easy, because most rewarded channels, they also don't need too much creative output. So because, for example, in case of Gamelight, we fetch the creatives from the store, so there is no need to prepare special videos or banners or anything. We will get everything from the store directly. So this part is quite easy.
yeah, but are there any benchmarks, for example, for me as a newbie to understand that my title is ready for introducing the rewarded ads? Of course, as you've mentioned previously, 30 levels are not enough. But how for me to understand that my title is ready for at least this trial period of this new channel?
Yeah. One thing, 30 levels might be enough if it's longer levels. For example, 30 levels wouldn't be enough if it's just a match 3 or there's a hyper casual, because then it would be over within a couple of
Yeah,
days.
it's quite easy to pass the level, yes.
There are games that have only 10, 20 levels, and each level takes days to finish, and later it goes, it can take weeks to finish. I would say if you've already have some organic and you see that there is some traction from the users, that they actually started playing your game, there is some activity happening, there are no bugs, there is no technical issues. In this case, you can start with rewarded. For example, we have quite a few cases when partners would directly soft launch with us instead of
Mm.
Google or Meta anymore, because they already tested previous games. They know it works better. They know this is what the benchmark they want to have to compare to other games too. So they directly would start soft launch with us. So there is no any more preparation point or getting too much data to be ready for reward. It's more like, as long as your game is ready, if it works, there are no technical issues, you should be good to go with rewarded channels too.
Yeah, because in the industry there are a lot of talks, for example, that your title should have I don't know 30% day one retention to be qualified for a new channel, just to spend more budget on the user acquisition. Otherwise, it's just waste of time. So for Rewards UA, that's not the case.
I would even say that if someone doesn't work with reverted UA yet, if they are still focused on traditionals, they should absolutely try, because usually once a gaming company switch to rewarded channels, they kind of stick to it and they keep on adding more, because they see the difference in the quality they get in comparison with traditional channels. So I would say it is not worth delaying in this case. Earlier is better, because you will see that if you were not reaching 30% retention day one, you are now start reaching this with rewarded channels. So it's as early you can do, better it is.
Okay, so I'm running out of questions. So it's been truly insightful for me personally, and I hope for our audience as well. Thanks a lot, Günay, for this journey through this rewarded UA industry. You can also follow the blog section of Gamelight, where you can find more case studies, more insights, more recommendations, and tips on the rewarded UA, and of course, the blog. Of Apptica, where we share as well the reports, the articles of the mobile industry and games specifically. By the way, we have recently launched our Telegram channel, so you are welcome to join. All the links will be available in the description, along with the contacts of Gunai, if you are keen on continuing this conversation and trying Gamelight product. So thanks, Gunai, for your time and insights one more time. It's been a real
Thank you very
pleasure.
much. Thank you, Xenia. Thank you for having me and for a great talk.
Thank you.